Hello and welcome to my Gila guide. In this guide, we're going to be going over advanced tactics that Gila can do. So to start, we're going to just dive right in and go over what items she wants to equip. So you can't go wrong with speed. What this will do is it'll increase the frequency of turns overall, as well as increase her placing in the turn order. However, if you want her to heal after things take damage so that she's kind of last in the turn order in relation to the rest of your team, one thing you can do is just give her magic bracelets or magic amulets. So magic increases her healing amount. This is extremely useful. So if you just want her just to spike heal, you can't go wrong with magic bracelets. Another item that she doesn't mind having equipped would be like health bracelets, items that increase max health. She is relatively durable. You can see here she has a physical defense of 40, magic defense of 55. So she's more tanky to magic than physical, but she's durable enough to get hit 2 to 3 times before dying. So giving her health increase items isn't the worst thing. However, if you use her very well and position her well, she'll easily be able to get off heals and not have to worry about taking damage. And you should just be going for just straight up heal magnitude. So when positioned correctly, she shouldn't be getting hit, and if she does get hit, she should be getting hit once, maybe twice at most. And there should be some kind of form of mitigation either on her or at play. So you can have Flanagan using ramparts. She can stand next to Flanagan, so she takes half damage. This makes her incredibly tanky. It helps free her up to run magic bracelets or speed bracelets. So both of those are much better. Okay. So we went over the items. There are 7 points I want to go over. So the first one is positioning and types of position. So right now she's kind of in the front lines. This is not where she wants to be. Where she wants to be generally is behind things. You can see here we have Frederica, Eridor, Serenoa. This is the rough positioning she wants to be in. So you have your tank frontliners, your super durable units in the front. You have your kind of midliner bruisers, your Serenoas, your Maxwells, and then you have your midliner mages, nukers, Frederica, Narvs, Azanas, Corinthians, units that want to cast spells on enemies and also be within range of enemies, but who do not want to be getting comboed to death by melee units. And then you have your healers. So the reason you want your healers back far is so that they can heal your units and be within range to heal them, but be out of range of enemies. And if they are within range of enemies, you want them to be generally away from them. So you don't want them to be getting surrounded by enemy melee units, getting backstabbed. The worst thing that should be happening to a healer, unless you're really overrun and you're on like a fresh save and the map is very difficult, is you want your healer to get hit in the front once or twice, at worst. And you shouldn't even be counting on that. You should really be... The way you should be using your units and shutdown and damage should be such that your healers aren't getting hit. That's one of the key things of having a healer. Now, there are going to be situations where you're going to be surrounded. So the main thing to do in this situation, for example, if there were enemies on the right side and then enemies on the left side, what you want to do is have her kite as best as possible. So if most of the enemies are down in this region and then down in this region, you want to start to push her away from them, but also be in range of your team. So if you are surrounded and there's nothing you can do about it, you want to just keep pushing her away from the enemies while healing. And that's usually the best thing to do, because they will focus whoever's the weakest. Luckily, she doesn't have the worst physical defense, so she won't get prioritized. Unfortunately, what will get prioritized are your weakest units in terms of defense. So if an enemy is a physical, it will go right for Frederica in this case. If it can have its choice as to who it attacks, especially if it's an archer, it will shoot Frederica, who's the most vulnerable to getting killed by physical damage. And then same thing for magic. If all of these 4 units are in close proximity, a mage will target Eridor because he has horrible magic defense. So these are things to consider when playing the game. You also have to consider that AI will prioritize kills. So if you have a Gila who is at very low health, they will prioritize her, even if a unit has worse physical defense because it will prioritize a kill. So even if you're surrounded, you want to get her away. And the big idea behind this is you want her to be healing things and to not be needing healed herself, because nothing is worse than a healer needing health. Now, there are situations and there are ways of getting around her needing healing. So, for example, you can use Sanctuary as long as you're near another ally, you can Sanctuary that ally, yourself, maybe a few other allies. That's a way she can heal herself that's pretty good. She also has For Those in Need, which helps heal allies at 50% or less. So this is pretty useful for spike healing, especially just with Cure Wounds. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to go over. The positioning and the types of position. Now, obviously, when you're attacking and you're pushing forward, you want to maintain some distance between her and enemies. She can be within range if you have a more desirable target that's always in range with full health, like a Frederica. But assuming you have like ramparts or shielding stance on Frederica to prevent her from getting spiked down, this can be totally viable. Serenoa can put shielding stance on Frederica. She can stand basically near Gila and just be a more attractive target, but also be tanky. AI doesn't recognize damage mitigation. For whatever reason, it just ignores it. I mean, I guess the reason for this is shielding stance probably in theory is this thing where if we were to think about it in terms of what it actually would be like, it would be like an enemy attacking Frederica and then Serenoa jumping in front of her. So they can't really predict that's going to happen. Okay. So the second advanced use case for Gila, I guess it's actually Gila, so we'll just go with that, is to use items instead of healing with TP sometimes. So she doesn't need a battery at all. If you're going to run her, if you look at her spell list, these are abilities, but let's be real, this is a spell list. So we have Cure Wounds for 1, Haste for 1, Remove Conditions for 1. So as long as she has 1 TP, she can do something, and she can do one of 3 things. This is hugely useful. Being able to heal for a good amount, remove conditions, just that alone is really useful, and then Haste is a nice utility, and I'll go over that soon. But if you want to conserve your TP, the easiest thing you can do is use a healing item on an ally that's nearby. So say, for example, Serenoa is at half health. Instead of healing him, she can, if she's just this close to him and it's safe to do this, she can run up to him and use a healing item on him. This will save her TP. And then this will allow her to build up TP to use Miraculous Light, to use Mend Wounds for spike heal, and to use Sanctuary for ranged AoE heal. She can also use large ranged AoE pellets, the healing pellets, to heal in an area near her, as well as hitting herself with it, because when you use those, it always hits you, unless you're Medina, who can throw them. But yeah, that's so using healing items to conserve TP. This is a really useful thing you can do with her. This is useful. This is useful for any mage, any healer. This can be done. And then here, let's start this actually. Point 3. Not moving to shave off turn order. This is something that I forgot to mention with Frederica, or maybe I did, but this is really useful to know and to take advantage of. If you use an ability and then move, you increased your turn order by the maximum, right? So if you attack and don't move, so for example, if I just wait on Serenoa, you can see here, instead of him going on turn 13, he's going on turn 11. And then if I move and then wait, you can see here that I don't get the 10. There's 2 bonuses, 10% from not doing anything, 10% from not moving. So if he just waits here, his turn is turn 11. Why is that useful? If you're healing and not moving, very often you will shave off free turn order and move before future enemy turns. So the big upside of this is if your position of your healers and mages is very good and enemies are wrapping around you and you're controlling the position and you don't have to move, all of the enemies that are moving are reducing their turn order in terms of turn order economy, and you are increasing the frequency of your turns. So just by waiting or just by healing and not moving, you can drastically shave off turn order. This is especially true on maps with a lot of enemies. So let's check the turn order right now. So she goes on turn 2. In this case, Serenoa can move and attack without it decreasing it. If the only way for him to decrease it would be to wait. So what I'll do is I'll just delay this guy. Okay, so we're going to just see what happens if we wait. So you can see here we lose. In this case, it does nothing because going before another ally isn't always useful because you're going to have Serenoa take his turn and then Geela take her turn. So it's not going to really help you unless there's a specific reason. Like, for example, if you want to sequence an attack with Benedict or Medina, or you have a Sunfall that you want to turn accelerate or something like that, and you want to have a utility go before Frederica, that would be the use case. But in this case, waiting here would be stupid. So you have to know when to wait in place, like when to cast a spell and wait, and when not to. But if you don't need to move your position, you can always wait. Generally, you're going to need to move no matter what. You're not, very rarely you're going to be purely defensive an entire round. There's maybe a few maps where this is the case, but it's really not the case all the time. So if you can move, basically you should think about it like this. If you can cast a spell and then stay in place and shave off turn order in relation to enemies, always do it. If you can cast a spell and move and it's free, always do that. So let's see. We'll cast a spell. So I can cast a spell and move for free. So in this case, what I would do is I would probably get out of range of the enemy. So I would cast from here because I'm close. I could haste Eridor, who's slow. And in this case, it doesn't really do anything short term. Let's see if it does anything long term. It's actually kind of hard to check that. Because as soon as I hit this, let's see. We'll just haste him. And then move. I don't want to move too far away, though, because we do have to push up and enemies do spawn behind us. And I know that about this map. So it is useful to have exact positioning and to be as precise with your positioning as possible. Sometimes it's hard to see the effects of haste. The more enemies on the map, the easier it is to tell what's going to happen. Or I'm sorry, the more enemies on the map, the more likely haste is to shave off turn order. So let's see if he has an increase. So now he's going on turn 24. His speed is 28. Gila's speed is 25. It potentially put her in front of her and maybe put him in front of a few enemies. Yeah, now he's going before her. So it did do something. Obviously, he's not going before enemies, so his speed's not high enough where it would do that. In some cases, using haste on things will turn accelerate them, so that's 0.6. We'll go into that. Okay, so moving for free. So 0.4 is moving for free when it doesn't reduce turn order. So you want to definitely wait in place, like you want to cast a spell and not move if it shaves off a few turns, especially in relation to enemies, especially if those enemies are near you. This is the key takeaway from this, and this is why this is useful to know. So you can see here we have a turn 13 and a turn 16. So let's say, for the sake of argument, she had a turn 8, and then her casting a healing spell and waiting in place got her to go in between these two enemies. That is the difference between a unit dying. Just from manipulating turn order by not moving. Right there. And that has happened to me a lot. And especially when you're doing Deathless, it really matters. So, some things to consider. Okay, moving for free, this is 0.4. Moving for free when it doesn't reduce turn order. The reason this is good is because if you're going to not get any benefit from standing in place, you might as well move. And if you're going to move, you might as well move to the best position available to you to increase the effectiveness of a hold you're doing or an attack. So that could be putting her into position to heal more things in the front line, getting her away from incoming enemies, things like this. So just being aware of the position. Number 5, who to use res on and why. So who are the targets, who are the best candidates for Miraculous Light? Usually it's going to be tanks. Usually it's going to be your Eridors, your Flanagans. Flanagan's a team tank with ramparts. Eridor is a main tank who can get spiked down out of nowhere. You have to be careful with Eridor. If there are 2 or 3 mages in range and he doesn't have King Shield up, he can die pretty easily. So he is probably the number 1 candidate for res. Other candidates are like bruisers like Serenoa and Maxwell. If you put res on Maxwell and he has a res earring, he has 3 reses, which is just hilarious. So you can use Maxwell as kind of like an off tank. Putting it on units like Roland, Anna, Milo, anything that's going to be consistently either in the fray or potentially could take a lot of damage. That's who you want to use res on. And the reason I went over conserving TP by using point blank items at times. Now you only want to do this when it makes sense to. You have to kind of calculate, do I want to shave off turn order if I wait in place? Do I want to run up and use an item to conserve TP? Like, these are decisions you have to make when using a healer, which I actually like because it makes the healers way more skill based than just, oh, just heal the guy. Don't think about position. Like, you need to worry about position, TP management. You need to worry about using items or not. You need to worry about getting spiked. You need to worry about, like, who gets res. Who should I haste? Do I remove condition or do I heal this turn? Because are they about to get spiked down, or are they about to act and then I need them available and I need to remove that paralyze so that they can attack and get away? You have to. These are all decisions you have to make when thinking about what your healer is doing. So point 5, who to use your res on Y. Usually frontliners, things that are in the fray. You can throw it on squishies like Frederica as a safety net. If you have the time for it, like if enemies aren't pushing you, just put it on everyone. Just straight up waste, especially if you're going for deathless. If you are not under time pressure, no green units, no enemies are just sitting in a static position, put res on literally everyone on your team. You have nothing to lose by doing that, especially for deathless. It will help you. Okay, point 6, when to haste things. So let's actually go through a few turns. What I'm going to do is just try to fury these. I'm going to try to find a haste that will actually do something. So I know enemies spawn here, so I'm just going to actually move Frederica up like this. We'll have them go through their turns. You can see that Eridor did increase his turn order in relation to Geela. When she put haste on him, he went after her, and now he's going before her. So if there were more enemies on the board, very likely he would be going before a few of them. We're going to have Serenoa do sweeping slash. Just get some AoE off.
I've been waiting for this.
There's only two more points, so we're almost done with this video. I'm trying to keep these shorter, keep more on keep to the bullet points. So perfect example of positioning. Enemy assassin is right here, can come up. Enemy assassin is right here, can come up. More enemies spawn back here. If I had more units, which I could, I'm running limited unit count, I'd have them block the ladders. But in this case, I'm actually going to move her up. And the idea is I want to prevent them from being able to surround her, like her and Frederica. Okay, so let's look at haste. Let's see what haste does. That's actually, hold on, let me see. Alright, if I wait in place, you can see here, that, so this is how waiting can be useful, or even just, you know, healing and then waiting in place. Alright, so let's try using haste on myself, on Gila, let's see. I don't think it lets you predict it. Okay, there it goes. It does show you. Okay, so you can see here that overall it has no effect in this case. And then if I look at Frederica, it's hard to see. I don't know that I can see what it's going to do long term. There are ways of calculating this, of figuring this out. Generally, if you have a unit with high speed and you haste it, it'll just increase its turn frequency. Hasting a unit with 25 speed isn't going to do a ton. So, something. Let's light wave her. Let's see if we can get Serenoa hasted. Because he's a turn 13, so he actually might shave off turn order. There we go. This is alright. So here's why haste is good. The more enemies, same thing with delays. With delay and with speed increase, the more units and more enemies on the board, the better it tends to be. Especially when those enemies are near you. If an enemy is near you and you delay it, that could be the difference between a unit dying. If an enemy is near you and you haste another unit and it acts before that unit, that could be the difference between a unit dying or not. So, haste, you can see here, he's going to go before this turn 12. This thing's about to be on our back line, so hasting it increases Serenoa's turn order, and then eventually once this thing does get in here, he will just be faster than it, just slightly. However, in this case, what it actually will do could be a disadvantage, because it'll cause a turn 14 enemy and a turn 12 enemy to now go after each other. So there's a lot of implications to using these abilities, and it's not simple, and there's always nuance to it. But generally, if you can haste and shave off like 5 turns of things that are like, you know, 2 or 3 of these things are near you, it's huge value. It allows you to act before enemies, so that's when you should do it. Okay, and then point 7, what spell should I use? So I'm just going to quickly go over the spells and when you should use them. Cure Wounds to generally conserve TP and spot heal. If the target is at 20% health, you'll put them at 70 roughly. It'll heal for roughly half. Sometimes it'll heal for 60%, so it's always good to use if something needs spot healed. Haste to shave off turn order to mitigate threats and to deal with enemies, and also to increase turn order, especially on dead turns and especially when TP is high. Otherwise, you could pass or use an item. Sanctuary to heal AoE. It also has better range, and it also has even better range than what you would think because of the AoE. So when you use Sanctuary, you actually can reach one tile further out. So for healing at range, for healing multiple things, let's say she wants to heal herself and up to 4 other units, this is the big use case. Really huge. Heal what ails you, spot removing conditions at range. Otherwise, you should probably just run up and use a pellet to remove the condition to conserve TP. Mend Wounds for spike heal. This is one of the most consistent spike heals in the game. Generally, anything at 20% will be set to full. It heals for 400 health in this case, which is most units' health. If any of your units, and also it combos with for those in need. So it generally will full heal something that's at like 5 or 10% health from low health to max health. And then Miraculous Light on dead turns, especially with a battery, to increase team durability. And aside from that, you can put it on tanks. You can also use Miraculous Light in a way where, let's say you have a unit like a tank at half health and you know it's about to get nuked. You can use Miraculous Light on it so that it can take like 200 something damage, like let's say 300 damage for the sake of argument, and then it dies, but the death is prevented and it reses with full health. You've effectively healed that unit to full health. So it took 300 damage, and then let's say it takes some more damage, let's say 300 more, and it's at 200 health. You've effectively allowed it to tank 600 damage. So you can use Miraculous Light on low health units to allow them to tank, and also it can be useful to tank bosses. So let's say you have a unit at 100 health, the boss back crits that unit for 300, and you Miraculous Lighted this unit before it gets back critted. Now all of a sudden this unit can tank absurd damage for a single hit. You've basically made the unit invincible for a single hit at low health. So this can be useful to use even at low health. Because it just allows you to tank. It prevents death, so it doesn't matter how much. It could hit 1,000 damage, it doesn't matter. So it can be useful in that situation. And then for items, extra large pellet for point blank spike heal to conserve resources, large range pellet for AoE spike heal at point blank, and then you can use these recovery pellets to spot remove conditions to conserve. Assuming this doesn't compromise your position, this is usually good to do to conserve TP. And then you can always use Cure All and Panacea. I don't recommend Cure All. I would just deal with all these pellets. If you want a clean inventory, you can sell these annoying pellets and just use Cure Alls. That's fine. It does the same thing. It's just more expensive. And then Panacea is a guaranteed 100% heal, remove all conditions. So if you plan on running those, she can always use those to completely spike heal for free. She can also throw stones if you want. Set up oil traps, help set up oil traps, things like this. So she should generally have good turns, generally be useful. That's pretty much it for this advanced guide. Let me know what you think. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I think I went over some things that I haven't really been seeing. Like, I don't really see people recommending using healing items to conserve TP or shaving off turns. And the reason I mention that is because I'm trying to come up with things that are either not known or not common. I'm sure there are people who do these things and recommend these things, but based on what I see on like Reddit and YouTube, there are really good videos for sure. Like, don't take it as... I know someone was saying that I was like acting like my videos are the best and that I'm like better than other people, but that's definitely not the case. I'm just learning as much as I can about this game and trying to further the amount of knowledge in the game. And anyone else who is also doing that is really cool in my book, and there's a lot of cool people that are testing things and doing things just like this. So yeah, it's just all about expanding the knowledge of the game. So thanks for checking this out, and see ya.